The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.
Top of the day. I'm Joe Doolittle.
And I'm Kate Dudding.
And this is Story by Story.
Celebrating the human spirit.
And we be storytellers. And in case you don't know what that is, that's people who entertain and teach and enthuse people through the art of telling a story. And I wouldn't call us artists, but we are. Yes, we are artists.
Yes,
I guess I would call us artists. Yes, I'm sorry. I overstepped that. I'm sorry. And we're going to spend about an hour talking about storytelling, and you get to listen to some stories and find out about what's going on in storytelling and things. But I usually like to find out what Kate's been up to, because she gets into some interesting things. Don't you, Kate?
Oh, yes. Yes. And some of them I can share with you. No. But I remembered as I was getting out of the car that I needed to answer the question, and I thought, why don't I share what I was just doing in the car? I was listening to a podcast about storytelling that I hadn't listened to before. Simon Brooks has a podcast, Conversations with Storytellers who have been telling for a number of years. So I was listening to his conversation that he did last year with Ed Stivender, who started telling stories in '77.
Ooh.
And he first performed at the National Storytelling Festival in 1980.
Wow.
So that goes back a ways, when the storytelling renaissance in this country started. And so I find it's very interesting to listen to people and how they got influenced.
And in our network, storytelling network, Simon Brooks is originally an English person that comes from England, and is a great storyteller based in New England. Mm-hmm. And he started this podcast as kind of an affiliate of what he does with his storytelling. Mm-hmm. And it is a great resource because he's in effect archiving a lot of the old voices and young voices. Yeah.
Well, but he wants to. He did start. He was inspired to archive the older voices, the elders.
Yeah.
And
we're not elders yet, are we?
I don't know. Well, since I didn't start storytelling till I was 45,
okay.
I'm not sort of in the elder category that way, but chronologically.
I feel like an elder this morning, so I'm going to go, even though I haven't.
Oh, but you're at least 4 or 5 years older than I am, so so the line's there. Okay.
Well,
but we're only as old as we feel. But so, Joe, what have you been doing with storytelling?
Well, I have had a wonderful time with a couple of performances, and they involve our guest storyteller, Marni Gillard. And we often talk about upcoming things, and one of those is the open mic, First Mondays, that is down in the Stockade at the First Reformed Church. And we just had a really good time in March. And it was stories with an Irish lilt. And I invited Marni to be the feature, and that brought out some of her friends and some other folks from our writers group and a couple of new people who had been to a Story Circle meeting and came to the open mic to perform their piece.
Cool.
And it was just delightful. And there was a real good, as I call it, bubble up.
Oh, there was. The singing
and
added to it too. We had a lot of singing.
Yep. It was just delightful. And sometimes in my chaplain rounds, I feel that the Spirit is there, whatever you define the Spirit as. And we had the Spirit with us, and it was just delightful and uplifting. And I've felt really good the rest of the month. I mean, I don't know about you. Marni Gillard is here with us, I should say. Marni, who had a career as a teacher, and now as a storyteller and writer
And coach.
And coach. And she's here with us today to talk about one of her projects of really love and affection. I think that's pretty close to the mark.
Yes.
We'll come back to that in a minute, but do you have a little buzz you want to share about your own storytelling? And you can talk about the open mic, but I know you've been doing some other things.
I let the Spirit work on my work life, Joe, and
there you go.
stuff shows up.
Really?
One of the things that was interesting to me a few years back, I'd gone to Catholic school up to 8th grade, but a friend said, you might want to try this graduate program, in pastoral studies. And of course, I knew I wasn't going to be anybody's pastor, but it did draw me. I went to just take one course, and a wonderful sister of St. Joseph in the Latham area said, oh no dear, we're giving you a master's. So get your pocketbook open, and and the church did help fund me. And now I'm doing many more faith-related
Really good.
storytelling gigs. Sometimes just talking to people about how do we talk about our faith through story. And I do a lot of work with children of all different ages and adults as well, and I'm enjoying that. But I still do schoolwork and sometimes connect up with Proctor's Theater. They're my sponsor, so to speak, at times when they put me in a school and they pay when the school can't pay.
Well, that's great.
It's a lot of fun.
And so the pastoral care dimensions of your storytelling, that's almost like a third career for you.
A little bit, yeah.
Really related, but still, because I remember when you were taking the classes, and you were actually pretty ebullient during the coursework, because you'd come around when we were at a gathering and talk about what you were learning and the interaction with the other students.
When you just go and hear a homily or a sermon every week, you get a certain connection with the scriptures and things like that. But when you go to take a class, you find out there are women theologians. Who knew? And ancient theologians that were still reading their books as great classics, and a lot of history about the church that I had no idea about. And it really was so uplifting. And not to mention the community of people I met.
Well, I'm glad for you, very happy for you, because the presence that you've, I want to say, acquired shows. It shows on your face when you're telling, and it shows in the reaction of the audience. It's really kind of special. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
But today you're here to tell about a branch of your faith work.
A branch, an important branch.
And it really, it's called Children at the Well, and it's an outgrowth.
Youth Storytellers for Peace and Understanding.
Youth, and listen to that tag.
Youth Storytellers for Peace and Understanding.
And I think it's one of the most remarkable elements in storytelling in the country, because I don't know we've been able to spawn many of the other places, but here it's really incredible. And you're involved as a coach, right?
I am. Originally we had, and we've had now, it's ongoing for over 25 years, is an adult interfaith story circle, because a woman named Gertrude Johnson, who'd retired from teaching at a parochial school, high school, said it was always hard to get kids to talk about morality, but if you start with the base of stories, the stories teach us about morality. And she said, why wouldn't that work with religion and faith traditions and cultural traditions? Sometimes it's hard. Well, we believe this. Well, we don't believe that, and we believe that. So she said, we won't go there. We're not going to go there. We're going to tell our stories. And we realize that we all have generosity of spirit in common. We all have our upbringing, how we got inducted into our faith in common. We have the stories of our elders and of being grateful, and so many things we have in common. And speaking of what have you been up to lately, our most recent Interfaith Adult Story Circle which once a year we call the Under the Tent of Abraham. So we start the evening with a Jew, a Muslim, and a Christian. And they don't go into a bar. They just tell one story that's powerful for them. And this year was magnificent. And it just opened people. So we could have gone on for hours, but 9 o'clock, we rang the bell. Okay, we're ready to head home. And we'll have future adult story circles. Should I mention the children at the well?
Right, yeah.
Students
Yeah.
are going to be the people who open the next Interfaith Adult Story Circle, which is April 2nd. And it's going to be at the Unitarian Universalist
Society of Schenectady,
yes,
on Wendell Avenue.
On
in
Wendell Avenue, thank you,
Schenectady.
yes. And that'd be a 7 to 9 evening. And the children will start, and then maybe they'll leave us and go home to do their homework. We're always battling sports and homework.
And if you haven't been in the Universalist Unitarian Church in Schenectady, it's a remarkable bit of architecture.
Oh, beautiful.
Designed by Edward Durrell Stone, in the round, and acoustically, it's one of the most acoustical places I've ever been, and it's just a great place to be.
You'll want to stop and look at it before you come in the small room that we put our circle in. I don't think we'll be sitting in that giant place, because even though the sound is amazing, it's not the best for storytelling because we'd be so far apart from each other.
Yes. So tell us a little more about Children at the Well, the specifics of...
Absolutely. After we were a number of years into the adult story circle, one adult woman brought her daughter, an 11-year-old named Ada. And Ada was a storyteller. And in a little while, her mother, who is Paula Weiss, and Gertrude Johnson got together and said, let's see if we could get a youth version of this going. And they got a wonderful grant from the National Storytelling Network.
I suggested that they go for that.
Yes, and it really made a big difference. So we were able to gather teachers and other people who knew about storytelling to advise us a little bit about it. And the teachers helped us to find youth. And for many, many years, we had up to almost 20 students. And they were Hindu and Muslim and Jewish and Christian and Baha'i and other things. And it was just wonderful to watch them all getting together and learning, yes, a little bit about each other's faith, but also just liking each other and finding these stories that in some way represented the culture or the tradition that their family was, or they'd been brought up in.
So it's not let's learn about everyone's different religions.
No, it's just
let's
like
hear
the adult
your
group.
stories from yours.
And what's a story you're willing to work on? Because it's really, as you were saying, an art, and it takes a lot of practice. So we'd have a certain number of weeks, and every Sunday afternoon we would rehearse. It happened more or less that all of a sudden everybody was graduating on us, and we really hadn't gone back to think about, we have to keep recruiting. And so we had a couple of slow years. In the last 2 years, we moved our rehearsals to Schenectady, which has a group called the Schenectady Clergy Against Hate. So they were really taking a stand, people, men and women, from different faith traditions coming together and saying, what can we do? And we said, well, one thing you could do is you could support Children at the Well and help us find some new students. And so the last 2 years we've been running again, and we have a nice mix. It's a small group, but it's a lovely group. And two of our coaches, our assistant coaches, but very much my peers as coaches, are two seniors in high school that were longtime members as Children at the Well.
Yeah, that was one of the problems early on, that the thought was, they'll be in it for 1 year, and and they wanted to come back, which was good, but unthought of.
Yes,
and then they grew into the assistant coaching because they were so experienced.
Oh yes. Aya Osman is a Muslim student with a lot of pizzazz, and she's already in an internship with a lawyer group in the area and learning about law, and her older brother was with us and he's now in law school, and she has a strong poet's spoken word style of her storytelling that'll be fun for people. And Varun Mandeka is a Hindu student who's a senior, and he's a brainy guy, and he's going to make a great director someday because he really pinpoints every single thing that children could do better at and what they're doing well. And I have to keep him on the what we're doing well, encouraging thing. But yes, he loves it. He prides himself on the fact that his mother helped him always see his mistakes. And so we're not going there. That's not our route to helping people get better. But he's a great guy, and I love his parents, and he's an only child. So, you know, he's had lots of attention and lots of thinking, and he's got his hands in many activities, running a group that makes TEDx talks in high school and learns how to be spokespeople for all different kinds of things. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a wonderful group, and we're coming up to our performances. So we have that one that's April 2nd. A little bit earlier, if you're watching this in March, there's March 29th, they'll be doing a family show for both the St. Catherine Tequila Parish on Union Street
In Schenectady.
From 2 to 4-ish on March 29th. Earlier in the month, that's not really a thing people would come to, but we're going to go to one of the synagogue's faith formation times early on a Sunday morning and use them as our audience to practice. So we're going to be doing that. And then sharing the fire, the regional storytelling conference is coming to Saratoga Springs, April 3rd through 5th, and we're going to be the closing concert. We're the 11 o'clock closing concert of that conference.
That's going to be great.
The Children at the Well. And that'll be at the Gideon Putnam Hotel. And you can just come for the concert if you weren't part of the...
We'll give you that website later because there are other concerts through the weekend that you might want to go to, but the one on Sunday, late Sunday morning
is Children at the Well.
Children at the Well.
Yes.
That's Palm Sunday, though. That's the only...
It is Palm Sunday. We do know that, but that was the conference's day they gave us, and we're happy for it.
And often storytelling conferences and festivals tell what they call sacred stories on Sunday mornings.
Yes.
So that kind of fits in, but yeah. And sacred could not necessarily have anything to do with faith, but something really meaningful, like the story about my mother's hands, would fit in there, and how remembering them after she died helped me still stay connected with her.
And these stories that children tell will be a combination of the sacred, the sublime, and the silly. we get each other laughing, and we have a good time. And
the other element of this group, in my observations, and I've only been involved really at the periphery, is that the group itself kind of forms up.
Oh, they do.
And there are generations that still are in touch with each other. And I got to know Kalafala Osman a lot better thanks to just being his chauffeur. But
to sharing the fire.
Yeah.
When it was in the Boston area, yeah.
And one of the neat things about his development in law school is I got a call from him requesting that I be a reference on his application to be the Muslim chaplain at Northeastern University. And I wasn't surprised. We'd had talks about what he might do, but he was into the law, and Muslim clergy always have another profession too. So when I got the call, I was really overjoyed because it was a great step for him and for them. And I lied about the reference, so I told him all sorts of wonderful things about it.
He just lied about that.
but
You're giving storytellers a bad name, Joe.
But his experience in the group was important because Kate actually tells a story about the three young guys, the Muslim, the Jew, and the Hindu. And it still means a lot to him to have those relationships. And I think that's not usual in the United States. To have those kind of cross-faith relationships as much so.
We're very proud of it. We're very proud of what it has spawned in our children. Yeah.
And so really, I'm so pleased that you're kind of shepherding the process, and I'm really pleased to hear that some of the students have kind of matured into roles as coaches. That's great.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So do you have a story to share with us? We've been talking about stories, but really, we need to hear stories.
Okay. I have a story and a song together. And I picked this because it really connects to the importance of understanding our history and the importance of looking in the face of oppression for different kinds of cultures or sexism or racism, all different kinds of things. When I was a girl in high school, I loved St. Patrick's Day. My whole family was Irish Catholic, both sides, and we had a big singing family, so we knew our Irish eyes are smiling, and Harrigan, divil a man can say a word agin me. We had so much fun around being Irish, and especially on St. Patrick's Day. Now, I will say that my adult relatives did not talk about Ireland. It was really, we are American Irish and we're thriving and we're happy. And of course, when you're focused on being thriving and happy, you know there's some little shadow underneath that. But we didn't know that exactly, except kind of from the Harrigan song. Never a shame will be mentioned with my name. But, you know, everybody's worried about shame and all that. We just didn't have the story of Ireland. It was all about smiles and happiness, and it was fine. It was just the way we got inducted. But I did learn one little thing that I just thought was kind of fun and funny, you know, how kids are, that, oh, it's bad luck to wear orange on St. Patrick's Day. We had it. It's bad luck. It was sort of like, don't step on a crack and break your mother's back. All the little things that kids learn as sort of a warning of life somehow. And so my sophomore year of high school, oblivious to anything about Irish history, I walked into class and my French teacher was wearing the brightest, beautiful dress from, you know, neck to her calves, bright orange. And I didn't really used to go up and talk to teachers a lot, but something of the little girl in me and that bad luck, I just went up to her and I said, did you not know that it's bad luck to wear orange on St. Patrick's Day? And suddenly she looked at me and said, I am not a Catholic. And it just shocked me. I had no response for that at all. It was almost like she spit at me, and I just went back to my seat, and I never even told anybody that experience, not anybody in my house. I just didn't know what it meant, but it did bring back the memory that when I was about 10 and President Kennedy was running for president, who became President Kennedy, Jack Kennedy, a lot of bad talk had happened about Catholics, like, oh, the Pope will run the show in America if you let a Catholic be there. And there was other negative stuff, but I wasn't paying that much attention to it, except to think the Pope's going to run the church or the country of America. Don't forget that. He's got plenty of other stuff he's got his fingers into. And it just seemed like a funny thing to me. But we just vaguely had this anti-Catholic sentiment. And later in high school, actually, another girl who liked a boy I liked, who was Methodist, said to me, his mother would never let you marry him. You're Catholic. And I didn't know what that meant, but I did tell that to somebody. I went to confession, to the Sacrament of Reconciliation one Saturday, and I just told my priest, who I loved and was the best priest in the world. He'd been a great friend to me all my life in the best way. And I like to say that because we're in a time where priests are getting put down for very good reasons. But I said to him, Father, why would she say that? What is the thing about being Catholic that people don't like? And he took a breath. I can still remember him, kind of sighing and saying, honey, she's heard that from adults, and she doesn't know what it means any more than you do. Sure, there's bad feelings sometimes between different religions, but Catholics and Protestants get together a lot now. It's an okay thing. They talk about the religions and they say who's going to raise the kids in what way and all of that. But you don't have to worry about any of that now. You have a nice boyfriend, yes? I said, oh, he's great, Father. He's really supportive of me in many ways. Well, you just keep liking him the way a 16-year-old girl should like her boyfriend, and you forgive that thing that happened to you, and you make friends with that girl too. You befriend her, and don't let that stand in the way. You go on being of love in the world as I know you are. And that lesson stayed with me a long time. And then many years passed. I had a chance to go to Malaysia as a foreign exchange student, and I met Hindus and Malay people who were Muslim, and I had many experiences about faith. And I just realized that my own heart could truly open to people of other faith. But Kathy Ryan, an Irish-American singer, that I've gotten to know well over the years, seeing her concerts, and I went to a workshop with her once. She introduced me to a song that was written by an Irish Protestant minister who lived in the lower part of Ireland. And he wrote this poem in the late 1800s when there was still so much conflict between Protestant and Catholic. The penal laws for centuries after Queen Elizabeth in England, sent lots and lots of people to Ireland, and it was very oppressive for the island. They couldn't go to Catholic church services. They couldn't really have any formidable job except for in a couple of categories, like maybe in the arts or theater or something like that. And there was great poverty. Of course, we all know about the famine. So when I heard that a Protestant minister actually wrote this song, it's called the 12th of July, which is the date that still in Northern Ireland there are parades and a lot of anti-Catholic talk because it keeps alive a 300-year-old win, William of Orange, coming to Ireland and defeating the king, James, I think, who was trying to get back in the throne. But he took on the Irish people to help him, and they were ragamuffins, and it was a little like the beginning of the American Revolution. It was pretty messy. But Orange won, and so that rivalry, unfortunately, is still kept alive. But this song is a song of love, and let me sing it to you. Come pledge again your heart and your hand, one grasp that never will sever. Our password be our native land, our motto, love forever. And let the orange lily be your badge, my patriot brother. 'Tis the everlasting green for me, and we for one another. Behold how green the gallant stem on which the orange flower is blooming, how in one heavenly breeze and beam both flower and stem are growing, the same good soil sustaining both, lets both united flourish, but cannot give the orange growth and cease the green to nourish. The more the hand that plucks that flower will vainly strive to cherish. In that hour the stem blooms on, though the flower begin to perish. Regard them then of equal worth, while lasts their genial weather. The time's at hand when deep in earth they will both sink together. And though it be in our country's cause, our party feelings blended, till lasting peace and equal laws on both will have descended. Till then, the orange lily be your badge, my patriot brother. 'Tis the everlasting green for me, and we for one another. Yes, we for one another. The poem, it was originally a poem, was by John Fraser, and Sean Terrell is the person who took it into song, and Kathy Ryan learned it from him. And he said, protect this, because it's not something to instigate more fighting. It's looking at the way we can connect.
Mm-hmm. Lovely.
Lovely, lovely. Lovely.
Yes, I had an epiphany at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin. I had always assumed that it was a Catholic church. I mean, growing up in Southern Connecticut, I had been to St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, and when I got to Dublin and found out it was a Protestant church, they got their country back, but they didn't get their churches. I said, I'm not going. I'm just not going.
Well, there are many Catholic churches now, yes. But the Church of Ireland is really the Church of England, which was started by Henry VIII, also many centuries ago.
Unfortunately, who apparently had an engineer on his staff, said, you know how to turn all those priests to our side? Say if they don't come, we'd take the roofs off their churches. And that's exactly what happened, and why you see so many stone walls, just the stone walls left in old ancient churches, because the roofs were taken off.
There are many remnants, and what I love about that song is this orange and green thing is a remnant, but if we can look at it as beauty, I mean, some of those, I've seen those castles and churches, or where the roof is off. A woman at your story swap told about St. Bridget, and she was so surprised that St. Bridget, who's so very Catholic, although comes out of pagan roots as well, her church in Kildare is also a Church of Ireland Protestant church.
Right. So I'm in Dublin. I'm not going to go there, but I'm looking for something else. And where do I find myself? Right in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral. I guess it's supposed to be here. So I grudgingly sort of go in, dragging my emotional baggage behind me. And then, they've kept it up nicely. And they had a door of reconciliation, a story about two warring anyways, and somebody taking sanctuary in the church, and they decided, let's mend our things. And then another one about Jonathan Swift, who was the deacon there, and wrote a scathing letter to the editor when the legislature was going to essentially flood the market with essentially wooden nickels, that the peasants, ruined them financially yet another way. And he said this, and so that didn't happen because this nice Protestant minister did it. So, and then I sat down, and the kneeler, often kneelers in Church of England, they have Bible quotes on them, and mine said, "Be not overcome with evil." I went, gee, they have kept it up, really nicely, and so I said, and they're Christian. Kate, you've been in interfaith things. They're just Christian.
Right.
Get over it.
Right. Well, we have to remember that. I've recently, just as an aside, read a book called The Band of Sisters, or A Band of Sisters, about Irish immigrants coming in 1910, but being very poor and very easily susceptible to being trafficked, something we talk about today, but was totally happening then as well. They'd go to work at a store, and in that store they'd be taken upstairs where they'd get a promotion, and the promotion was to go into prostitution without any say. They got stolen. Really. And the women who helped them were well-to-do women who had a little trouble being around poor women. But there was a strong leader, and she said, "We are the privileged. We've got to reach out to these girls. They're our sisters." And a wonderful thing was happening to help mend that. It was right around the time of the factory fire, the Triangle Fire. So it was a good story.
Well, we need to go down to coming attractions and then to another story.
Okay.
So, let's see. We've mentioned on March 29th, in case it's not yet March 29th for you, at the St.
Tattery Tekakwitha.
Thank you. Church on Union Street in Niskayuna at 2 p.m. will be a performance by Children at the Well. And then another performance about the newest Children at the Well tellers will be at the Interfaith Story Circle on Thursday, April 2nd at the Unitarian Universalist Society of Schenectady. I'm so glad that's written down. On Wendell Avenue in Schenectady. Then the day after starts Sharing the Fire, the Northeast Storytelling Conference and Festival, which has many performances, many workshops. In the first workshop session, there's a workshop by my friend Skylar Ford for people who work with dementia seniors with dementia. She's very well. She's been a social worker. She's got many different facets, and so they have a $50 try-us fee that you can go to the opening keynote by Sherry Norfolk and go to one workshop in that session, including Skylar Ford's, for $50.
Nice.
Yeah. So just to get a taste of that. And all that you can see on their website, NE Storytelling for Northeast Storytelling, nestorytelling.org.
Can I throw in that you don't really have to see yourself as a storyteller or a performer, because one of the things about the keynote is she's really talking about the power of using story in the workplace. Everything from business to health to teaching of any kind.
Trial lawyers, they are telling their clients' story.
Yes, yes. That
you don't want to be reeling off facts. You want to tell their story. So yes, and in business, it can convey sort of the morality of the business, that what's really important. And sometimes a little story, like the owner of McDonald's saw one of his McDonald's had trash in it, and he went inside and said, "Where's the manager?" He's at lunch give them a call. We've got to fix this. And so then the manager came back, and the owner of McDonald's, Ray, and the manager and Ray's chauffeur picked up the trash outside. Now, that's a story that shows a lot. And it took me, 30 seconds to share it. And all McDonald's employees heard that going, oh, this is really important. So, then on April 6th, which mentioned earlier, Joe's first Monday Tales and Stuff, an open mic for storytelling, music, and spoken word, will be April in the Air, which means
Spring.
And the short fiction critique group with James Gonda will be the featured performers.
And they're a group that meets twice a month to review their own short story writing, and they've got some wonderful stories, and they've published 6 anthologies over the years. So,
and short means like 300 words or something?
well, it's anything under 1,000.
Under 1,000. So that's like 3 printed pages or something.
And anybody can tell a story at that,
Yes, you're
or
right.
sing a song.
It doesn't have to be short. I mean, it has to be 10 minutes, but...
And I'm encouraging a banjo playing friend to come. So
Yes.
Lovely.
other things going on.
Right. And then something that we have nothing to do with, the Front Parlor series, which has been going on for over, I'd say 5 years, 7. That it's now the second Tuesday of the month at Little Peck's in Troy, 7:30 to 9:30. Then on Wednesday, April 15th, that's the third Wednesday of the month. We alternate the third Tuesday and the third Wednesday in the Story Circle of the Capital District. We will be, for the very first time, at the Clifton Park Half Moon Public Library because Claire Nolan, our room scout in Albany, couldn't find a room for us. So my library did have room.
And that's the Story Circle.
That's Story Circle of the
Regular
Capital
Story
District, a guild of month where we tell stories every month, works in progress, and you can get as much or as little feedback as you desire.
So if you're looking to taste storytelling just a little bit, that's a good thing to do.
Listeners are highly appreciated. And then to round out the month, on the 4th Tuesday of every month, September to June, there's a storytelling open mic up at the revamped Cafe Lena. And the featured teller will be Kelvin Caraga, a wonderful storyteller from the Cambridge, New York area. And it's a modest fee. Students are free. New tellers always welcomed. Then we finished our productions at Proctor's for the season. We'll be starting up again in September. I must get those dates established. But you can get over 200 stories on demand going to our website, storycircle@proctors.org. Click on YouTube. You'll find stories by the 3 of us and many others.
Many other people.
Including Kelvin. And then this show itself is available on demand. Storycircle@proctors.org. Click on Story by Story.
Wow, that's a pretty good portfolio.
Yes.
Yep.
And we have 15 minutes left. So maybe we should go to your next story.
I'd love to tell another story.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, please, would you? You don't really have to encourage storytellers much to tell us.
I will just say that this is a story that sort of quickly and accidentally came into my life when I got invited, as you were saying, to those gigs that the Catholic pastoral people are now inviting me to. A particular group called the Ladies of Charity invited me to find 4 Catholic women and tell their stories. I did do that, and it was going to be at the Ladies of Charity place. But right at the last minute, they called me and said, we are going to need to move our event to the Sisters of Mercy in Albany because we're having a funeral that morning for one of our sisters, and some of our lay women will come, but we probably won't be there, but the Sisters of Mercy in Albany. And as it turned out, one of the women I'd been working on was Katherine Mccauley. So I'll tell you a little bit about Katherine Mccauley, who was the founder of the Sisters
Of Mercy. Oh, there you go.
And when I went into the chapel to do the stories, there was Catherine's face in a big portrait in the chapel looking right at me like, tell it well, girl.
Oh, get it straight.
What I loved finding out first about Katherine was that at 4 years old, her father, who was a Catholic in the time that the penal laws were still in effect, although they were getting ready to change. Of course, it was going to take a while to change people's opinions, a long while, but her father was a brilliant architect and a maker of wooden things, pulpits, but churches that he'd built pulpits for were closed, and things like that. But he had the respect of the Protestant people, what they called the ascendancy, where the Protestants had money and, ran the country. But he was among them because he had this wonderful work ethic, and he was an artist, and he was also really a real estate agent, kind of, trying to help people get housing. But he had a great love for the poor. So on Saturday mornings, he and little Katherine, really just maybe 4 years old, would walk into Dublin, and they'd go to the poorest sections. And he'd give Katherine pockets full of little treats that she could give out to the children. And he would invite families, if you'd like to on Sunday, we have a little service at our house right in the yard. It's kind of like a Catholic service. And I know many of you, come from Catholic roots. We don't have a priest doing it, but it's really lovely. And if you'd like to come and hear stories about Jesus or tell some stories yourself, come to our house. We'll come down with a big cart on Sunday mornings and pick up anybody who'd like to go. And he would point to his daughter Katherine and say, and Katherine's my helper. She gives out the buns and pours the buttermilk. So every Sunday morning, this little girl is watching her father orchestrate a "You're welcome if you're Catholic" event. And the poor people would come and feed them. And she really got inducted into the art of charity. Now, not long after that, when she wasn't much more than 4, her father had a heart attack and died. Her mother, who had loved being part of this ascendancy, but had been practicing Catholic with her husband as much as possible, said, "We're not going to be Catholic anymore. Our friends are Protestant. We're going to join the Church of England," and that's that. But Katherine was the oldest of the little ones, and the little ones were easily, brought, whatever their mother says goes. And Katherine said, I'm not so sure I want to join. I'll come with you, Mommy, but I'm not joining. And as she got older and older, she found a couple of other Catholic friends that were relatives of her father or mother, cousins. And she went and lived with them so she could kind of be more with the Catholic spirit. And it wasn't an easy life because they were suffering in some ways financially, and one of the adults was having a drink problem, and that was a big problem in Ireland, of course. And she just hung in. And as she got to be a teenager, her mother was not well. And she cared for her mother just with all her heart and soul. And her mother actually died in her arms as a teenage girl. And she felt in her heart, because you can get inducted into the mystery of God in ways that aren't necessarily true, I think, but that her mother might go to hell because she had made that decision. So she was determined that she would help bring her siblings back into the church, and she was going to talk about being Catholic. And like I said, the penal laws were kind of coming to an end, so it was okay to talk about it. And she wanted to be of help in any way she could. A couple that were part of her parents' friends were Quaker, and they had come back from being in India for a long time. They were perhaps English, but they might have been Irish and wanted to come back to Ireland. And they were elderly and asked, "You took such beautiful care of your mother, and we see that you're a young girl who's cares for the poor, and if you have a little extra food, you'll give it to somebody or help somebody out." And Katherine was also very big at watching out for young women who worked for the rich and could sometimes be taken care of, taken advantage of, and she had that as a cause. Well, the couple said, "You could come and live with us, and you could help take care of us as we're aging, and we would pay you a good salary, and we just would love to have you around. Now, we don't want you kneeling in front of crosses or anything like that. We're Quaker, we're not doing that." But Katherine it's perfectly fine. And the woman said, "And if you want to let in a beggar or two in the back door to have a little food, that would be all right, but not too many." And so she made this wonderful relationship with this Quaker couple. And they did indeed get elderly, and they both converted right near their deaths to Catholicism because of all that Katherine talked about. And she would bring a priest friend to talk with them about the church. And not everybody believes in converting people at the last minute, but it was something that was very important to her. And a lot of the couple's relatives were nervous that the money inheritance might go to Katherine. And one day, when the father was ill and she was caring for him, but he was sitting up in the living room and the window was open, he heard one of the relatives say, "That Catholic girl, she's going to get his money and we're going to lose out on everything." And he called over Katherine and he said, "I've made my decision that I would like you to take our inheritance, our entire inheritance, Katherine. If you had something you wanted to do with this money, what would it be?" She said, "I would like to start a home for women, and it would be young women who need a place of lodging because they don't have it or because they need to get away from some circumstances that are bad. I'd also like to have children be able to come if the women have children. And with this amount of money, we could build a beautiful, established house of mercy." And while the Catholic priest gave her a little trouble, you can't just have all those women living together and no one chaperoning them. "So we're going to have you go train to be a nun." And Katherine really had no intention. She was about 40 at this point. No intention of becoming a nun, but all right, I'll get the training. And so she said, "I'm not going to join that convent, but we'll be called the Women of Mercy. We'll be called the Sisters of Mercy." And so it began at Baggot Street. And you can still go to Baggot Street in Dublin. And you can read all the stories of what Katherine's life was like growing up. I have a new friend who's a Sister of Mercy that I've just made recently, and she's been handing me lots of books about Katherine, like A Woman Sings of Mercy. She said, "Marni, you're going to tell her story. Keep reading about it." So I'm very grateful for that. She's actually working with the Dominican nuns in Schenectady. The nuns today all have to get gigs, just like the storytellers. And I just have such a fondness for her, and the fact that in Albany, near where we are right now, we're in Colonie and Schenectady's not far, the Sisters of Mercy have developed hospitals and schools and nursing homes, and their legacy in this area is very, very strong. But it was a long time coming with Katherine learning to be the head of an order of nuns when she'd never imagined herself a nun to begin with. But I guess you'd say she married Jesus and was happy to do so. And that's a little bit about Katherine Mccauley.
She
married into his family.
She
Yeah.
married into his family very much. She was quite a character, I guess. She got the girls dancing at night when they were in some foreign place that was cold and not enough heat. She said, we're going to be doing dancing to stay warm. So that's a little about her character. Thanks for listening to
that's a
that
great
story.
story.
I do.
And I presume that it was well received when you told it.
It was. Actually, there's a little tag in the story at the end of that. I'd been sitting with one of the elder Sisters of Mercy waiting to go in. They were having a prayer service or something, and I was waiting to go in to be the speaker. And I said, you could come in and hear this if you'd like. She said, I could come? I said, yes. Everybody who lives here is allowed to come. So she came in and got a back seat. And when the event was over, I was walking out with a lot of the women. We were standing in the vestibule kind of their home. And she said, I thought that storyteller was so good. We don't talk about Katherine like that. I wonder where she got all that. And I said, what did you like about it? And she began to tell me the details she liked. And I said, that was me. I was the storyteller. Oh, yes, it was you. And it was just one of those sweet experiences you can have after a gig.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it stays with you, and it's kind of lifts your spirits.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wants you to keep going.
Yeah, Elizabeth Ellis says, God only gives you enough encouragement to keep going on, but you never know how much you touch people.
You never know. I have a lot of wonderful little moments where I can see my story made a difference, and so many stories I've heard that have made a big difference in my life, like that Kathy Ryan song.
Yeah. And somebody told me, there was this guy and his eyes were closed. He wasn't drooling or snoring, but he wasn't with me at all. And then afterwards he came up and it was just so overwhelming. He just wanted to listen, and so you never know.
Oh, a fifth grade boy once, when I was telling a story that I usually tell to young people, second graders, and I had talked to them, but I said I want to grow it up and make it a fifth grade story. And his head was down the entire time, and I thought, he's not paying attention. And as soon as I was done, I said, so I'd like to know, what did you like about that story, if anything? He put his head right up and boom, out it all came, because he'd been making the pictures in his mind. It was hard to be up close and look right at me. And he said that, but he said he saw that world.
Storytelling magic. And that's all we have time for today. We have just a minute to say goodbye and give our appreciations to Marni for coming.
What a wonderful spiritual rush you brought.
Good. I'm glad.
And it's just been super.
And just mention once more the Children at the Well performance on Thursday, April 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Unitarian Society in Schenectady, one of the monthly meetings of the Interfaith Story Circle of the Tri-City area.
Free of charge.
Free of charge.
No cost.
Yes. And
well, good afternoon, Kate. Good afternoon, Marni.
Good evening, good morning. This show is broadcast at all different times, so thank you for joining us at whatever time is yours.
And see you next month.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round,